Well, how do there, chums, as I, Captain Steve. I've got my geeky hat on, so it's time to get geeky about a game. We're getting geeky about Praey for the Gods, and this is my review of the game. And now I've completely played through this game, and before I get into the review, I need to point out this is made by 3 developers. Frickin' mental. 3 people brought this game to us. Heck yes, I did, through crowdfunding and backing, and it's a frickin' beauty. So, what is this game? It's basically like Shadow of the Colossus. You encounter massive, great big creatures, blasphemi or gods, and you have to take them out. And yes, here's a little mini cutscene of one rising from the ground, and what you need to do is find their actual weak spots. Just like in Shadow of the Colossus. But in Shadow of the Colossus, you take a knife to them, or a sword, or whatever. In this, you've got this bell that you've got to ring like 3 times. Yes, and first you've got to work out how to take the creature down or mount the creature to get to these weak spots to chime upon the bell 3 times. So here you go, I'm standing on this pressure plate over here, and it really annoys the little critter. He runs around, he goes freaking mental, he charges at me, and I've got to get out the way as he's just about to launch and headbutt me to oblivion, and then get onto him and find his weak spot and ring the bell. Now, I'm going to shut up for a second so you can hear some of the sound effects. Audibly, it's a frickin' treat for the frickin' ears, and visually, it's quite stunning for the eyes as well. I mean, I'm playing on PS5, and it has got quite some nice sort of aesthetics to this game, it has to be said. But yes, mounting these creatures, finding their weak spots, and taking them down is where the enjoyment really comes from in this game. Here's a lovely cutscene to watch. Watch this graphically. So all the music, the ambience, the graphical setting, everything, it just feels so Shadow of the Colossus. It could almost be Shadow of the Colossus 2. And I say almost, and there's good reason why I say almost, which we'll get to in a bit. But this is brilliant. 3 people. Yeah, I have to just keep reminding myself. 3 people. It's an amazing accomplishment, it really is. Yes, there is also other elements that Shadow of the Colossus didn't experiment with, like crafting. So yeah, there's a very basic element of crafting where you can cut down trees, yes, and yes, you can turn that into logs, and those logs you can craft into maybe a new grappling hook, or you can craft it into some arrows, or a new sword, or whatever. You can craft it into pretty much all the things that you're going to need within the game. You can also set up little mini campfires. Yes, you can't cook at the campfires you create. You have to find ones that have already been created, but there is actually lore in the game that tells you why that is. You can only cook cursed meat out in the wilds. Yes, if you want a proper culinary treat, you've got to find a cave and find yourself a campfire that someone has made before. But yes, you can put down fire, and it detracts these weird sort of ghost entities from attacking you. Now, if these ghost entities do attack you, they're fricking gits. They're really hard to fricking hit, so you best just to throw down a fricking campfire and hope they fly into it and get burnt to death. You can set your weapon on fire and hit them with that, but yeah, collision detection on these freaking ghosts, as you can imagine, it's a freaking ghost, is pretty difficult. There's lots of other creatures inside of game, like little mini creatures you're going to encounter in the wilds, like blokes with swords and things. You can kill those with relative ease, and the combat system isn't that advanced, to be honest. It's no Breath of the Wild, but while you are going around in the wilds and adventuring and exploring, you are going to pick up nuggets of lore. You're also going to find these sigils on walls inside of caves, which expand out your map area, and it does feel like a nice little accomplishment once you can see the actual vastness of the landscape and map. And it is quite vast, it is quite open worldy, and it's quite cool. And actually, as you're doing all these creatures sort of in sequence, once you actually end the game, you can actually go back and do speed attacks, which I really like, but we'll get to that in a moment. So these caves that you can find, you're going to find lots of goodies in there. You can find things called idols. If you get 3 idols, you can actually upgrade your stamina or your health. So it does actually benefit you going and exploring the world beheld before you go to your next encounter to make yourself sort of on par with what you're coming up against. There you go, there's a campfire that I could set up right now, and I could cook meat over that and get a lot of my health back. You're going to get your heat back, but you can rest at night as well and get fully rested. You can turn on the survival areas of this game and up them massively, so this becomes a big integral part of the game. I went for easy mode on my playthrough from my first playthrough and for this review, and yeah, I still enjoyed those elements, even though they're dialed right down. Heck yes, and I really enjoyed exploring this world. I came across points of interest and things of intrigue, and also things that benefited me greatly on my journey, but being that this is easy mode, they weren't really essential, but I still enjoyed it all the same. Now, there are other things that this brings to the game that Shadow of the Colossus didn't experiment with, like a grappling frickin' hook. Yes, add a grappling hook to a game, that instantly gives it an extra 5 points inside of its review, doesn't it? Yes, everyone loves a grappling hook, who doesn't? Awesome, yeah, since the days of Captain Commando. Right, awesome, found some more lore there, found myself a nice little idol and things. So yeah, there's a lot to be had for exploration in this game. If you like exploration and open worldiness, you're going to love this. What I would say though, it's one biome, it's a frost biome. It's a beautiful frost biome, and it also brings in camera mode, so you can actually take photos of all the things that you find. I'm taking some pictures of this Banksy artwork on a rock there, lovely. Awesome, picture to be held and shared, yes. So there is photo mode as well for all those that like to share photos out on the Twitterverse and things. Yes, there is a big community of that, so yes, this game brings that to it as well. Things I'm not so keen about, so that grappling hook, although it's awesome, sometimes you can aim it and you get it change signal to say, yes, you can fire here. As soon as you release, no, you can't. Computer says no. So you have to move it down a little bit and get it there, and it's a bit twitchy. And imagine this against a boss where you're freaking panicking. It's like, what the just freaking work. Happens quite a lot. And there's other instances where things sort of lose their physics. So here we go. I'm going to try and grapple hook onto this as it's coming down. No, you can't. You can't grapple hook on it when it's coming down, Steve. You know, you can only grapple hook on things when they're going back up again. So yeah, it's a bit frickin' weird. There's times where things change their behaviours, and there's no real rhyme or reason as to why, and it's really frickin' frustrating. It might seem small, but when it's up against a boss, or it's in a part of a game where you want to do something quick, and it just doesn't frickin' work, but it did previously, is odd. It's like here, there's these little sort of round magic globes. I hit them, and it triggers things to happen. They're like little switches, and you can shoot them with an arrow, and by the time you get there, the action has actually taken place, so it makes sense to maybe use your arrow to hit them from a distance. Awesome. So you're doing this for like, I don't know, 15 minutes of the game, and then maybe 10 minutes later where you encounter some on top of a creature's head, where it'd be nice to actually activate them nice and quick. You're like, I'm going to use my freaking bow. You go to the effort of changing to your bow. Boom, hit it, nothing happens. You fire it at another one. Boom, nothing happens. Yet 10 minutes ago it was working fine. And then you have to just use your grappling hook or something else. What? Why? And there's times in the game where you've got to be psychic or be the developer to know what's going to happen. So here you go, I make it all the way to the end of this sort of lava area, jump down, hooray and hurrah, boom. Where'd that come from? What the fudge was that? What the heck just freaking happened? Yes. And then you have to sort of replay it, and then you know to jump off to the side so you don't get slammed. It's like, how's that fair? That's just 15 minutes of my time freaking wasted. Or you get a janky camera angle, or it just feels like the actual scene just didn't sort of merge right. It looked like I was going to make it onto that ledge when I dropped, but no, it was slightly off by a millimetre. And then on the way down I couldn't grab onto anything, couldn't grapple nothing. There's things that just don't make sense. One minute you can do things that are going to save your life, and then the next minute you can't. You're like, oh, balls. Well, there you go, I'm going back to a checkpoint. But yeah, there's a few of those. There's more than a few, to be honest, and it does detract a little bit from the game. But that's the only thing. It's just lacking a little bit of finite polish in some of those areas. In my opinion, they just need to fine-tune a few things and make behaviours work throughout the game. If you can hit a lever with a freaking bow, make it happen throughout the game, or stop it from happening. One or the other. Simple. Cool, awesome, that sort of stuff. But why I'm playing this game is because I love Shadow of the Colossus, and I love the fact that, you know, these sort of colossi, or these gods, or blasphemi that they've brought into this game are living and breathing in the same sort of way that they managed to pull off with Shadow of the Colossus. And the musical score and all the sound effects bring that believability into life, and they actually make it quite fun. But some of those control hiccups that I mentioned have brought that level of frustration up a tad from Shadow of the Colossus. Colossus. Those frustrations were there in Shadow of the Colossus. I mean, everybody who's played Shadow of the Colossus knows what I mean. And those same frustrations are here, but it almost feels like you've got workarounds for them that just feel a little bit... They take away a little from that immersion at times. So yeah, but the rest of it is freaking awesome. The controls feel virtually the same as Shadow of the Colossus. Now what I would say is when you first start playing, triangle is jump. I had to go into my settings and change my settings to control setup 3 to make X as jump. So go into your settings before you really start out and make sure you got the control layout that you want to get familiar with. Because then the tutorials all make sense and everything feels great then and after. I think because I didn't change my controls until I had beat the third freaking god, I got a little bit confused with the controls. So yeah, I made it how I wanted to, but I was still pressing the old buttons every now and again and dropping off the freaking creature, which added to my frustration. So get your control layout done as before you start on your adventure, people. That's my biggest thing for you to get the best entertainment and enjoyment out of this title. But you're going to get enjoyment out of this title because it's freaking enjoyable, and that's why I'm going to be scoring it quite highly. End game stuff, so you get the time attacks, a bit like Shadow of the Colossus. Now I'm just going around bettering my times against these creatures. My previous time for this one was 7 minutes. I got it down to 2 minutes and 37 seconds. Heck yes I did. And talking of scores, let's give this a score. So music is brilliant, sound effects are brilliant, visuals are brilliant, controls are great if you change them from the start, but there are a few mini gripes, odd camera angles, strange behaviours of some of the switches and things and puzzles in the game, which sort of detract a bit from the immersion, but I'm scoring this a solid 8.4 out of 10, and it's getting a massive Captain Steve's thumbs up, and I really hope they bring another one out in the future. Take care. Goodbye, goodbye, and goodbye again. Well, thank you very much for watching. If you like what you see, please hit a like and a subscribe, and I'd like to say a massive great big thank you to all of my backers over on Patreon and over on YouTube membership. Thanking you, backers! And if you want to support this channel, just don't skip the adverts. That throws revenue down my avenue. Or yeah, just stay with Captain Steve that little bit longer and hit something on this screen. There's merch here now too.